Welcome back to The Faithful Citizen. Today, we're continuing our redeeming series by walking into the Restless sanctuary. We're going to dismantle the collision between the burnt-out wife and the glass kitchen. We're digging into why the Tradwife phenomenon isn't a revival of biblical womanhood, but a capitalist response to a spiritual crisis, and how to stop building a museum so we can finally start building a garden. Let's get into it.
Yeah. Welcome to the space where conviction meets rhythm, where truth got a mic and the church gotta listen. This ain't Sunday talk, it's real life living, faith in motion, the citizen's mission. We talk grace, we talk justice, we talk peace. Not the kind that conforms, but the kind that frees. The world's loud with noise, we cut through the vision. This is the faithful citizen, let's get to the wisdom.
It starts with a video on your For You page. The lighting is soft, golden, and impossibly clean. A woman in a floral dress, hair perfectly coiffed, stands in a sun-drenched kitchen that shows no signs of actual human habitation. No sticky countertops, no pile of unread mail, no plastic toys underfoot. With a serene, almost hypnotic slowness, she begins to pour flour onto a wooden board. She's making cereal from scratch. There's no chaos here. There's no frantic rush to find a lost shoe before the school bus arrives. There's no buzzing phone demanding a response to a Slack message from a boss who doesn't respect boundaries. There's only the rhythmic sound of kneading dough, the quiet hum of a perfectly ordered home, and a voiceover that speaks in a soothing, low register about the joy of slow living and the peace of a life centered entirely on the home. You watch it. Then you watch another, and another. You're likely watching this at 11:30 p.m., lying in the dark, the phone's blue light illuminating a face etched with exhaustion. You're tired in a way that sleep can't fix. You've just finished a day that felt more like a triage operation than a life. Managing a career, navigating a commute, mediating sibling conflicts, cooking a dinner that was complained about, and carrying the mental load of 1,000 invisible tasks. To the modern educated woman, this video should look like a step backward. It should look like the very domestic confinement that their grandmother fought to escape. But to a growing number of women, Christian and secular alike, it doesn't look like a cage. It seems like a life raft. This is the collision of the burnt-out wife and the glass kitchen. We're witnessing a unique cultural moment where exhaustion meets algorithms. The modern woman is drowning in the second shift, the unpaid, invisible workload of the home that awaits her after her paid workday ends. And into this exhaustion steps the Trad-Fluencer, the traditional housewife influencer, offering a seductive binary solution. If you just lived like this, slower, simpler, more submissive, you wouldn't be so tired. This is an excavation of that moment. We need to name the Tradwife phenomenon for what it actually is. It's not a revival of biblical womanhood. It's not a movement of the Holy Spirit. It's a capitalist response to a spiritual and sociological crisis. It monetizes female exhaustion by selling a fantasy of domestic dependency that, as we'll see, even the influencers themselves aren't actually living. We're being sold a cure, a just stay home, by women who are running media empires. To redeem the home from this restless cycle, we must look behind the filter. We must dismantle the idol of the aesthetic and the idol of dependency. And we must be honest about the burnout that makes them so appealing. We don't need to go back to the 1950s. We need to go forward to the kingdom, toward a reality of shared stewardship and honest vocation that offers a rest deeper than any linen dress can provide. To understand why the apron looks like a parachute, we have to understand the cliff we're falling from. The allure of the Tradwife aesthetic isn't theological, it's visceral. It's a trauma response to the broken promise of modern womanhood. The secular world promised women they could have it all. A high-powered career, a fulfilling family life, impact, and autonomy. But the reality for most women hasn't been having it all, it's been doing it all. We've created a society where women are expected to work like they don't have children and raise children like they don't have work. The girl boss era didn't liberate women from the domestic load, it just added a corporate load on top of it. It handed women a laptop and said, "Congratulations, you can now run a company." Still, it didn't take away the laundry basket, the meal planning, the toddler's emotional regulation, or the mental Rolodex of the entire household schedule. This is the second shift. Sociologist Arlie Hochschild coined the term to describe the labor performed at home after the paid workday is done. But in the digital age, this shift has mutated into something even more exhausting. The mental load. The mental load isn't just the execution of tasks, doing the dishes. It's the management of them, noticing the detergent is low, adding it to the list, and remembering to buy it. It's the family's project management. In the vast majority of households, even those that claim to be egalitarian, this cognitive burden falls almost exclusively on the wife. She's the designated knower of all things. She carries the family's emotional map, anticipating needs before they arise. This exhaustion is compounded by a subtle, pervasive dynamic in many marriages: the failure of help. How often do we hear a husband say, "I babysat the kids so she could go out," or "I helped with the laundry today"? The language reveals the theology. Help implies that responsibility rests with the wife and that the husband is a volunteer. This dynamic reaches its most toxic form in weaponized incompetence, where a partner feigns inability or consistently performs a task poorly. Hence, the wife eventually sighs and says, "Move, I'll just do it myself." It forces the wife into the role of manager or mother to her husband. Is it any wonder, then, that the Tradwife video is so seductive? When a woman is drowning in the mental load, the Tradwife aesthetic offers a radical simplification. It whispers a promise. If you accept that the home is your job, you can stop being angry that he isn't helping. It offers a truce. It says, stop fighting for a partnership that isn't happening and settle for a role that you can control. It identifies the right disease, exhaustion, but as we'll see, it prescribes a cure based on a lie. If the demand for the Tradwife fantasy is driven by the trauma of the second shift, the supply is driven by something equally powerful: capitalism. We must pivot our gaze from the woman watching the video to the woman making it. She appears on our screens in a wash of beige linen and soft, natural light. She's kneading dough or arranging wildflowers in a ceramic vase or homeschooling a row of angelic children at a reclaimed wood table. Her captions speak of the quiet joy of keeping the home, of submitting to her husband's leadership, and of the spiritual peace found in choosing the sacred simplicity of the domestic sphere over the hustle of the modern world. She's the Trad-Fluencer, the homemaking influencer who's become a dominant force in the algorithm of Christian womanhood. She sells a vision of biblical femininity that's serene, slow, and entirely centered on the home. She tells her followers, millions of exhausted modern women, that their anxiety stems from their ambition, and that true holiness lies in shrinking their world to the size of their kitchen. But if we could step through the screen, past the perfectly curated grid, and into the reality of her life, we'd find something startlingly different. To produce that 30-second reel of slow living requires a setup that's anything but slow. It requires a professional-grade camera, a ring light, and a tripod. It requires a script, a storyboard, and hours of editing. To monetize that simple lifestyle requires negotiating brand deals with linen companies, managing affiliate links for organic supplements, reviewing contracts, and analyzing engagement metrics to ensure the algorithm continues to favor her content. Behind the scenes, this simple housewife isn't just baking bread. She's running a media company. She's a content strategist, creative director, contract negotiator, and brand manager. In many cases, she's the primary breadwinner for her family, employing assistants, video editors, and even her own husband to help manage the business of being a stay-at-home mom. This is the glass kitchen. It's a transparent, curated performance of domesticity that, in reality, masks a high-powered career. And here lies the deep, unsettling hypocrisy at the heart of this movement. These women are pitching a domesticated lifestyle that they're not actually living. They're selling the Tradwife fantasy, a life of total dependency, limited sphere, and domestic containment, while living the life of a Proverbs 31 merchant. They're industrious, savvy, public-facing, and economically powerful. They're doing precisely what they tell their followers not to do, working outside the home, even if the office is a corner of the living room, building a platform and wielding massive influence. There's nothing wrong with a woman building a business. In fact, as we've argued in this series, female industry is a biblical virtue. The problem isn't the work. The problem is the lie. The problem is that they're using their immense professional ambition to tell other women that ambition is a sin. They're using their easier strength to tell other women to be weak. They're capitalizing on their followers' exhaustion by selling them a cure. Just stay home, that they themselves aren't taking. Consider the economics of this aesthetic. The influencer tells her followers that they can achieve her peaceful lifestyle through thrift, submission, and better time management. But in reality, her lifestyle is achieved through capital. The reason she has time to bake bread from scratch on a Tuesday morning isn't just that she prioritizes it, it's often because she has a nanny or housekeeper handling the other tasks. The reason her home is perfectly decorated isn't just that she has a heart for the home. It's that her business generates the income to buy expensive linens and renovate her kitchen. This creates a crushing, impossible burden for the normal woman watching her. She tries to replicate the aesthetic without the infrastructure. She bakes the bread, but the laundry piles up. She homeschools the kids, but the finances get tight. She concludes that she's a spiritual failure. But she isn't failing spiritually, she's just failing financially. She's trying to live like a CEO on a single income without the staff, budget, or business model that make an influencer's life possible. If the hypocrisy of the Trad-Fluencer is the engine, the fuel is a pair of subtle but powerful theological idols. These false gospels take the legitimate desires of the human heart, for beauty and for safety, and twist them into traps. The first idol is aesthetic holiness. This is the belief pervasive in the digital age that beauty is evidence of truth. It operates on the unspoken assumption that if a life looks peaceful, it must be holy. If a home is organized, the souls within it must be ordered. If a woman is wearing linen and baking bread, she must be closer to the heart of God than the woman wearing polyester and reheating frozen nuggets. This is a dangerous heresy because it confuses cultural signaling with spiritual fruit. The Trad-Fluencer sells a specific aesthetic, beige, organic, slow, vintage, as if it were a fruit of the Spirit. But nowhere in Scripture does it say, the fruit of the Spirit is sourdough, raw milk, and a clean countertop. By tying holiness to a specific, expensive, and time-consuming aesthetic, the Trad-Fluencer creates a false law. She suggests that to be a godly woman is to be a curator of beauty. This turns the home into a museum, not a garden. A museum is curated, static, and perfect. You look, but you don't touch. A garden is messy. It has dirt. It has weeds. It has seasons of death and seasons of growth. But it produces life. When we mistake the museum for the garden, we shame the woman with a messy, lived-in home. She begins to believe that her chaos is a sign of her sin, when often chaos is just a sign of life. The second and perhaps more dangerous idol is the trap of dependency. To the woman burnt out by the girl boss era, the Tradwife movement offers a seductive alternative. Total reliance on a husband. It frames financial and social dependency not as a risk, but as a virtue, a sign of ultimate trust in God's design for headship. But this model asks a woman to trade her exhaustion for precariousness. The aesthetic relies on the assumption that the head of household is infallible, immortal, and endlessly benevolent. It assumes he'll never lose his job, never fall ill, never struggle with addiction, never abuse his power, and never leave. But we live in a fallen world. If the husband's business fails, the tradwife has no safety net. If the husband becomes disabled, the tradwife has no recent workforce experience to step into the gap. If the husband turns abusive, and statistics tell us that financial dependency is a primary tool of entrapment in abusive marriages, the tradwife has no exit. By dismantling her own agency and resources in the name of biblical submission, she's removing the very easer strength, economic, intellectual, and social, that God may one day require her to use to save her family from ruin. This model reduces a woman to a function. She becomes a human appliance, valued for what she provides, hot meals, clean floors, obedient children, rather than who she is. It takes the expansive, dangerous, creative imago Dei of a woman and tells her that the only way to glorify God is to make her world small. We can't solve the problem of the second shift by retreating into a cage. We need a solution that redeems the work, the home, and the marriage. We've dismantled the girl boss idol that exhausted us, and we've exposed the tradwife idol that seeks to entrap us. They both fail because they're human attempts to manage the weight of the world, one through sheer effort, the other through total surrender to a human protector. The gospel offers a different way. It calls us to a model of marriage that's neither a contract, 50-50 transaction, nor a hierarchy, master-servant, but a covenant of shared stewardship. To redeem the home from the crisis of burnout, we must fundamentally alter the language we use. We must delete the word help from the dictionary of Christian marriage. In the secular world, and sadly in many Christian homes, the husband is viewed as the assistant manager of the domestic sphere. The wife is the CEO. She holds the vision, the schedule, and the standards. He executes tasks when directed. This is why he asks, "Do I need to pick up the kids?" Or, "What can I do to help?" These questions, though polite, are heavy. They require the wife to perform the cognitive labor of assessing the need, formulating a plan, and delegating the task. The labor of management remains hers. The cruciform pivot shifts the husband from helper to co-laborer. In a covenantal garden, there are no guests. Both partners are gardeners. Both are responsible for the soil. This means the husband doesn't wait to be told that the trash is full. He has eyes to see it. He doesn't wait to be reminded that his mother's birthday is coming up. He owns the calendar. This is the practical application of Galatians 6:2. Bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. The mental load is a burden. It's heavy. It causes anxiety. When a husband leaves that entire burden on his wife's shoulders, he's failing to fulfill the law of Christ in his own home. He's letting his neighbor, his wife, be crushed while he sits on the couch. True headship, as we explored in the covenantal garden, isn't the power to command, it's the responsibility to serve. If the husband claims to be the head, he should be the first to notice the body's needs. He should be the primary servant. Consider the biological metaphor. The head is connected to the body via the nervous system. If the body's in pain, the head feels it immediately. If the body's exhausted, the head knows. A head that's disconnected from the nervous system of the body, unaware of its pain, its hunger, or its needs, isn't a leader. It's a dead weight. A husband who can relax while his wife is drowning in the second shift has severed his marriage's nervous system. To get there, however, requires a brutal confrontation. We must address the weaponized incompetence that drives women toward the tradwife fantasy. For the Christian husband, feigning inability isn't a personality quirk, it's a sin. To pretend you can't cook a basic meal, operate a washing machine, or manage a schedule, when you're fully capable of doing these things in your professional life, is an act of deceit. It's a form of passive aggression designed to force your wife into servitude. The pivot here is repentance. It requires the husband to admit, "I've been content to let you carry the weight of our life because it was easier for me. I've treated you like a mother, not a wife. I've profited from your exhaustion." And it requires the wife to lay down the idol of control. This is the hard truth for the burnt-out wife. Sometimes she holds on to the mental load because it makes her feel essential. She complains that he doesn't do it right, but hovers when he tries. She refolds the towels. She critiques the outfit he chose for the toddler. She's Martha, who resents the work but refuses to share the kitchen. Shared stewardship means the wife must allow her husband to be a father and a partner in his own way. It means letting go of the standard of perfect, the Tradwife aesthetic, in favor of the standard of shared, the covenantal reality. We've addressed the burnout, now we must address the lie. The solution to the hypocrisy of the Trad-Fluencer, preaching submission while practicing empire building, and the idolatry of aesthetic holiness, confusing beige decor with spiritual fruit, isn't to demand that these women stop working. Absolutely not. The biblical answer to the hypocrisy of the glass kitchen isn't to smash the industry, it's to name the work. The cruciform pivot requires us to move from performative domesticity to honest vocation. First, we must affirm a fundamental truth that the Trad-Fluencer herself is afraid to admit. Running a media brand is valid biblical work. The Proverbs 31 woman didn't hide her industry. She didn't pretend that her vineyard planted itself or that her merchandise sold itself. Her work was visible, public, and celebrated. She was a woman of strength and dignity, not because she hid her power, but because she used it to bless her household and her community. When a woman uses her gifts of communication, administration, and creativity to build a business, even if that business is about homemaking, she's exercising the imago Dei. She's taking dominion. She's being fruitful. The sin of the Trad-Fluencer isn't her ambition. It's her refusal to own it. We need to give these women permission to step out from behind the apron and say, I'm a businesswoman. We need to celebrate their capacity to build, negotiate, and create. By validating their work as work, we remove the need for the masquerade. Second, we must demand truth in advertising. If you're selling a lifestyle that requires a six-figure income and a staff to maintain, you have a moral obligation to disclose that infrastructure to the women who are trying to emulate you. Honest vocation means using the platform to show the scaffolding. It means posting the beautiful loaf of bread, and also the caption, I had time to make this because my assistant answered my emails today. It means showing the peaceful living room, but also admitting, I can keep this clean because we can afford a housekeeper twice a month. It means teaching on submission, but also clarifying, my husband and I are partners in this business. I'm not a silent dependent. This kind of honesty destroys the idol of effortless perfection. It humanizes the influencer, and most importantly, it liberates the follower. When a woman sees the scaffolding, she stops comparing her behind the scenes to the influencer's highlight reel. She realizes that the gap between them isn't spiritual, it's structural. Finally, we must shift the platform's purpose from signaling to serving. The glass kitchen is designed to signal virtue. It says, look at how holy I am. The redeemed kitchen is intended to serve the neighbor. It says, look at how good God is. A redeemed influencer uses her platform not to create a standard that crushes her followers, but to offer tools that equip them. She stops selling aesthetic holiness and starts selling sustainable grace. She uses her influence to talk about the real, gritty, unaesthetic work of marriage, parenting, and discipleship, the kind that can't be fixed with a linen dress or a sourdough starter. The Tradwife movement, at its core, is a response to a world that feels chaotic and out of control. It offers a glass box, clean, contained, and beautiful, where everything has its place. But life in a glass box is suffocating. And for the women watching from the outside, pressing their noses against the glass, it's a recipe for despair. We don't need more glass kitchens. We need open doors. We don't need a museum of the past. We need a garden for the present. In the covenantal garden, the wife isn't a human appliance valued for her domestic output. She's an Ezer Kenegdo, a warrior ally unleashed to use her gifts in the home, the marketplace, and the church. And the husband isn't a financial plan or a benevolent warden. He's a gardener kneeling in the dirt beside her, bearing the load, pulling the weeds, and tending the soil. To the burnt-out wife scrolling through Instagram at midnight, you're not failing because your life doesn't look like a reel. You're living an authentic, three-dimensional life in a fallen world. Your mismatched socks, your store-bought bread, and your busy schedule aren't sins. They're just life. You don't need an apron, you need a partner. And to the influencer trapped in the performance, you don't have to pretend anymore. You can take off the costume. You can own your strength. The women you're leading don't need a fantasy. They need a sister who will tell them the truth. Let's break the glass. Let's breathe the air. And let's get back to the real work of the kingdom. Messy, uncurated, shared, and glorious. Thanks for listening to The Faithful Citizen. If this conversation resonated with you, or if it felt like a breath of fresh air in a suffocating feed, please take a moment to like, rate, and review the show. It's the best way to help us break the algorithm and get this message to the people who need it. If you know a friend who is drowning in the second shift, share this episode with her. Not as another task for her list, but as an invitation to stop performing. For the full experience, head over to our Substack. That's where you can read The Restless Sanctuary in its entirety. It's where we do our long-form work, unpacking the theology that helps us redeem our culture. Join the community there. Join the discussion. And let's help each other build homes that are messy, shared, and glorious. Let's break the glass. Let's breathe the air.